Why Chicago Fire Season 13 could be a turning point for the One Chicago universe. Chicago Fire continues to thrive as one of the most popular and engaging procedurals on network TV, and Chicago Fire Season 13 was one of the strongest seasons in recent memory. It marked a season of change and transition for the crew of Firehouse 51, but this allowed for fresh and engaging storytelling, new character dynamics, and a stunning One Chicago crossover, all of which have helped to change the landscape of the franchise. As One Chicago's parent show, Chicago Fire is the series that drives the franchise forward, and Season 13 has set up a new and exciting era for the IP. Following Chicago Fire Season 12's truncated episode count, Season 13 was a return to long-form storytelling, which I believe has marked a turning point for the future of the One Chicago franchise. One of the biggest developments to come out of Chicago Fire Season 13 was the welcome return of the crossover episodes that defined the franchise's early seasons. After a 5-year gap, the franchise returned to a full-scale, multi-show, 3-part crossover event within the trenches. Part I, which aired as Chicago Fire Season 13, Episode 11, before continuing across Chicago Med Season 10, Episode 11, and concluding as part of Chicago PD Season 12, Episode 11. This was the first crossover event since Infection, which aired in 2019. The storyline centered on a devastating gas explosion beneath a city high-rise, which also threatened the subway and required the combined efforts of fire rescue teams, trauma doctors, and police tactical units. Not only was the immense spectacle a great example of what Chicago Fire can do with a combination of action and drama, but it also served as a reminder of the unified storytelling and nail-biting stakes that made the early seasons of One Chicago feel so immersive. One of the most significant narrative shifts in Chicago Fire Season 13 was the change in leadership dynamics, which saw Chief Dom Pascal take over as head of Firehouse 51. He was brought in to replace fan favorite Wallace Bowden, who left the show following his promotion to Deputy District Chief in one of the most prominent One Chicago character exits ever. Pascal came in to bring stability to Firehouse 51, but quickly came into conflict with several prominent characters, including Severide. Pascal has one of the most immersive Chicago Fire character arcs and goes through a period of growth before slowly earning the respect of his colleagues. His season arc is also beset by tragedy after Pascal's wife, Monica, dies in a car accident, and the chief is then implicated in the subsequent murder of her killer. But Severide works to clear his name and exonerate him, and the two men cool their fractious relationship. Furthermore, Pascal brings a new leadership model to Firehouse 51, which is best exemplified during the crossover when his coordination with Chicago PD's recalcitrant Hank Voight allowed the teams to work together smoothly, despite obvious tension between the two. Pascal's era is set to be very different than Bowden's, but his approach could usher in a new era for Chicago Fire and help future crossovers. The One Chicago franchise has always thrived on its rich, textured characters, and their interactions add color and light to the narrative, engaging viewers and helping to develop strong arcs. Chief among these throughout the course of the season has been the developing bond between Pascal and Severide, which ended with the Chicago Fire characters having a newfound respect for one another. This will hopefully influence their interactions in future seasons, and being that Severide is a hugely influential member of the team, should lead to a smoother Firehouse 51. The crossover also allowed the show to deepen cross-franchise character dynamics, with Stella and Chicago PD's Ruzek finding themselves in danger and bonding despite the animosity between their two teams. It also explored the complex tension between Voight and Severide, as well as the complicated past between Voight and Firehouse 51. Furthermore, the unexpected Violet and Chicago Med's Dr. Frost allowed for hints of a possible future romance. These are all character stories I would expect to come around again sooner rather than later, which could mean more crossovers in the near future. Chicago Fire has always excelled when exploring its characters' motivations, complex personal and professional relationships, and has focused on sprawling, episodic storytelling. Season 13 is a return to form for the show, and could well set a strong precedent for Chicago Fire Season 14 and the rest of the franchise moving forward. The season could set the standard, and providing a blueprint for the One Chicago shows moving forward, especially with the tantalizing story strands that have been set up for future exploration. Collaborative storytelling is one of the strongest weapons the franchise has, and this can become more commonplace moving forward. The balance of the show's story arcs is what makes it shine, and Season 13 has some excellent examples of this, such as Stella acclimating to her new leadership position and Herman, and Match's continuing bond. Multi-show storytelling enhances character arcs and dynamics, and everything feels connected like a living, breathing organism. Exciting times lie ahead for One Chicago, and there is little doubt that Chicago Fire will continue to be the beating heart of the franchise. The flames have always burned brightly at Firehouse 51, but as Chicago Fire heads into its much-anticipated Season 13, there's a sense of deeper transformation smoldering just beneath the surface. This isn't just another season of heroic rescues and emotional farewells. It could mark a definitive turning point for the entire One Chicago universe. The One Chicago franchise, which includes Chicago Fire, Chicago PD, and Chicago Med, has thrived on interconnected stories, character crossovers, and a shared sense of community. But Season 13 of Chicago Fire feels poised to shake things up, recentering the universe, and possibly redefining what it means to be a part of this sprawling network of shows. A new era of leadership. One of the most intriguing developments lies in the potential evolution of leadership within Firehouse 51. With longtime Captain Matthew Casey returning in a more permanent capacity and Chief Bowden contemplating his future, there's speculation that a passing of the torch may occur. Casey stepping into a higher leadership role, perhaps even as battalion chief, would not only elevate the stakes within Chicago Fire, but could ripple across the entire One Chicago landscape. Casey's leadership style is markedly different from Bowden's. While Bowden is the moral compass and seasoned anchor, Casey is the quiet strategist, often leading by example rather than proclamation. This shift could inspire a more modern, emotionally intelligent approach to crisis response, a fresh tone that might echo across Chicago PD and Chicago Med as well. Interdepartmental crossovers on steroids. Season 13 is likely to feature tighter, more meaningful crossovers, not just for dramatic effect, but to show the real synergy between departments. With escalating threats in the city, rising violence, political unrest, and more complex medical emergencies, the lines between fire, law enforcement, and medical response are blurrier than ever. Expect to see coordinated missions where Firehouse 51 collaborates directly with intelligence from Chicago PD and trauma surgeons from Chicago Med. These won't be gimmicky one-episode events, but sustained arcs that bring real consequences to all involved. Season 13 could be the year we see true integration of the shows, perhaps even leading to a mini-series-style event that binds them together in a crisis of epic proportions. A darker, grittier Firehouse. Chicago Fire has never shied away from tragedy, but it has also maintained a sense of hope and resilience. That balance may shift in Season 13, diving deeper into the psychological toll of the job. With recent seasons showing increasing burnout, PTSD, and moral dilemmas, Season 13 may explore what happens when heroes begin to crack.